Yeah, why can you record?
I don't know. It just
All right, welcome football fans to a Thursday episode of the Call Sheet Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Smith, here at the Fans First Sports Network. It is Thursday, which means our State of the Franchise show. And today we're going to profile, for me, what is one of the most interesting football teams in the NFL, the Los Angeles Rams. Joining me on the podcast from the Rams Up podcast here on FFSN, Mark and Ian. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Appreciate you coming on.
Hey, glad to be here.
Yeah, we had a few technical difficulties getting this show launched.
Hey, likewise, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I was just saying, Ian, we had a few technical difficulties getting the show launched, but we're off and running now to talk about the LA Rams. I like to start with these shows by just sort of getting your origin stories. How'd you guys become Rams fans? I know Mark's in California. Give us a little bit of your background.
Well, I grew up in Ventura County, which is north of LA, and I grew up a Dodger fan first, a Ram fan second. And I've been asked this question a lot, how I became a level 10 Ram fan and a level maybe 7 Dodger fan, when that flip occurred. And it's really when the Raiders came to town. When the Raiders came to LA, and I saw folks starting to root for the Raiders, and it just pissed me off. And I just went all in on the Rams in that era and never looked back. I still love the Dodgers, still pull for the Lakers, but for me, it's all about the LA Rams at this point.
Is level 10 the highest level of
Yes,
Ram
yes, it
fan?
is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if there was like a level 100 or anything like that. So. What about you, Ian?
For me, a different path. Now, I'll be turning 30 at the end of this calendar year, so I'm definitely a little bit younger than Mark. I didn't live through the Raider craziness of the 80s and back when they were a well-run franchise. Now, a little bit different story. I tease my friends about that. But for me, family was always Rams fans, but they were bitter about the move when they bailed the year I was born, 1995, and still would watch games. I definitely leaned into USC football the most during that time when I was growing up. But I always would watch Rams game. But God, it was painful, so painful to watch. But I always still would watch. Family enjoyed it. But I was like, man, this team is brutal. But I'm rocking with what the fam likes. And as things got better, and then eventually we moved to LA, I was like, finally, I have a professional team I can go and see whenever I want. And I was so happy that they came back after years, again, with my own two eyes, watching with family for years of painful St. Louis football. I think what really kickstarted, like, man, I'm so happy to see a team in my own city represent the city I live in, where I can go and root for them. I think that's when it really kickstarted seriously. Not that I didn't watch them a ton during the St. Louis era, but, they weren't from Los Angeles, so there wasn't this hardcore bond that my grandparents grew up going to the Coliseum, seeing games all their lives. I didn't have that, and I wanted that badly. USC did a good job for a while, but when they came back in 16 and I was able to go with those family members who told me all the great stories, fearsome foursome, seeing Dickerson at the Coliseum kill it, all that, and when I finally got to experience my own version of that, that's when I think it really hit that 10 out of 10 that Mark referred to earlier.
That's interesting because LA really has been a transient town as far as professional football is concerned, with the Rams and Raiders coming and going. Now the Chargers in town. And I forget sometimes that, USC owned the town football-wise for a long time. Are the Rams, this is kind of a golden age now for the Rams, winning a Super Bowl a couple years ago. Sneaky close last year. A lot of good hype about them this year. Is football-wise, is LA finally a Rams town?
Well, let me try that first. And I don't think LA, I think LA is, the Rams are slowly winning over LA, definitely. Their fan base is growing. And I think guys like Cooper and Nakua and Matthew Stafford have a lot to do with that. But the LA, you're talking about a metropolitan area of 13 million people. You can go to Packer bars, Steeler bars, 49er bars, uh, Commander bars. It's just such a giant metropolis that there's always going to be fan bases for virtually every team. Maybe not so many Jag fans and teams like that, but to answer your question, I don't know that I'll ever be the Rams will be LA's only team, but they're certainly gaining growing their fan base really fast, I think. Ian may disagree with me. Ian may have a better feel, a more optimistic feel about their future here.
Well, I think that
No, it's making I mean, to answer your question there, Kevin, it is growing significantly since 2016 to. I call this era the LA Rams 2.0 era, if that makes sense, right? There was the origin of it, right? Coliseum days into Anaheim, where it fizzled out and got crappy, and a lot of mafia drama, conspiracy with that. And then obviously the St. Louis era that was great at the beginning, then just nosedived into oblivion. And them coming back year after year, it's been a noticeable increase of fandom. So to give you a quick example, and I know I referenced this earlier, my age group, I'm the only Rams guy. All my other friends in this 30, so let's just say from 22 to 30, in that window right there, I'd say maybe in 20 to 30 overall, everyone chose a team. They affiliated with whatever their family liked, teams from other states of the country, other cities. So I'm the only Rams guy to give you a perspective of my age group. Now, I know plenty of other guys, but in my large friend group, which is like 15 deep, I would consider best friends of mine, I'm the only Rams guy that's here in LA out of this group. But I'd say from 21 and younger, I see so many young guys, young girls rocking Rams gear now. It's made significant leaps over every winning season that has happened since Sean McVay's got here. Let's be honest. The Fisher era, disaster. 4-12 team. That was not getting anybody to be fans. They were teeter-tottering between that, the Chargers, Raiders, or Steelers, any big powerhouse franchise in history. But year after year, it's been noticeable. And especially the last couple years, I see a lot more people rocking a Rams hat. I see a lot more people rocking a Rams jersey, whether it be the classic throwbacks that I love or the modern ones that are a part of SoFi Stadium that we see now. So it's tangible, but it's going to take another generation or two of winning football to get the young kids now, right, 21 and younger, to be able to grow with them. And I see that, though. I do see it, Kevin.
Now you bring up Sean McVay, and I certainly want to talk about him. I believe that McVay is clearly one of the best coaches in the NFL. He's incredibly well respected around the league. What are some of the things that you feel, that you see from Sean McVay being close to the team, that you believe allow him to be such a successful coach? Because, I mean, his scheme is great, but it's more than the scheme, isn't it?
I'll go first again, if that's okay, Ian. We'll get a little heartbeat going here. As I mentioned before the show, Kevin, I had that discussion with the Eagles podcaster before the game last year, the playoff game. And you said like a lot of East Coasters may not have their finger on the pulse of the Rams. And I think the biggest thing McVay has going for him is culture building. That roster, that clubhouse, that front office from top to bottom, they do everything right. Drafting, evaluating, building a team. They don't draft knuckleheads. They don't bring knuckleheads into the clubhouse. Occasionally it happens, and you'll slowly see those guys, on the trading block, or they move on to other teams. It's just the culture. It's an incredible culture, and if you follow this team closely, like I told the Eagles podcaster, I'll take this Rams culture over any other team in the league. I just feel really strongly about that.
And you're a little bit more of a scheme guy. I'm sure you've spent a lot of time breaking down McVay's scheme. As I was saying to you off air, that's a treat. I would love to have that opportunity. What do you really admire about him?
Yeah, it's number one's the culture, for sure. Because in the Fisher era with our current GM, Les Snead, who was a part of that Fisher era as well, there were good players being drafted, but it was how can we get guys to buy in and believe? That's number one, right? If you can do that, then the talent will come through, and obviously schematics will get you to championships or get you to that elite tier level. But I think what McVay brought in and what he's continued to showcase, even through all the articles recently who have showcased that, hey, he had some bad times during that 2022 season where he thought maybe he was faking it or he was questioning himself. Even despite all that rough patches throughout his young career, now we're going into year 9 with McVay, which is pretty crazy to think about. It's the culture. It's getting guys to believe in what they're doing, to be a professional, not only on the football field, but you hear McVay talk about in life. Let's carry these morals, these values, the way we treat each other, the way we prepare for each other. Let's take that into life. And you hear so many players talk about, man, I feel so much better as a human being a part of this Rams organization. And that was definitely not something you could say the entire St. Louis era, from majority of it outside the greatest show on turf. That was something you definitely didn't hear a bunch of in the Fisher era, even with Les Snead drafting good players. McVay, number one, it's the culture. Getting guys to believe and inspiring them to just be great humans outside of football too. And I think that's special no matter what job or career it is on planet Earth. But that's number one. And then the second stuff is the scheme. But number one's the culture, getting guys to believe in themselves. It's special. It is.
It's interesting. As a Steeler fan, I feel like you're talking about Mike Tomlin. You hear a lot of the same things about Mike Tomlin there, and unfortunately, you don't hear the accolades pouring in for Tomlin when it comes to the scheme, the X's and the O's. That's where Steeler fans get up in arms. They feel maybe that his schemes are outdated. Nobody says that about Sean McVay. If we look at the season the Rams just had, Mark, you were mentioning talking to Eagles fans about that game, and they felt really good about it. And then suddenly, late in that game, man, if they'd been able to block Jalen Carter on a couple of plays late in that game, we could be talking about a totally new narrative now about the Rams. They were really close to winning that football game, and then who knows from there. Were you surprised by that run that they had last year, or was this team as good as it seemed to be at the end of the year?
I was not surprised. I thought the Rams had a good chance of winning that game. I think, you get Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay in a playoff game. They just need a couple of things to break their way, and they have a shot. And, it kind of, the end kind of sucked, but you got to give them credit. I can guarantee you every Eagle fan in that stadium was thinking, oh my God, we're about to lose this game. How could this happen? But I wasn't really surprised, although there's times with it depends on your personality, how you watch a game. And I tend to be, I give up early sometimes. And I've learned over the years that that's a mistake with Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford. And that because there's so many times where they just come back and they pull it off, or they at least make games competitive. They had 3 or 4 games last year where Ian and I were both like in the first half, it was like, what is going on? Our team sucks. And then in the second half, a couple big plays, 103-yard pick six, a punt return in overtime, and they just pull it out. They just have that. There's something about this team, I think, for the last couple of years that you can't give up on them. You just can't.
You've got a top-level head coach. You got a top-level quarterback. I think Matthew Stafford is still underrated in this league. And you got a great culture. That puts you in great shape to begin with. But the Rams have done some really good things in this offseason as well. Ian, when you think about 2025, what are you most excited about as far as this team is concerned?
Man, the Jalen Carter thing haunts me. I just want to start there. I think that team could have won a championship. So my expectations going into this season is a Super Bowl or bust. I do, because I thought that team last season was good enough to win a championship, sincerely. So how does that affect my viewpoint of 2025? Okay. We have more competition on the O-line at center. We got to see how that unfolds. There were some O-line blunders that final drive for multiple reasons that made me sad. But I think with the competition, it'll make everyone better so those things do not happen in future inevitable big, important games, whether it be for playoff seeding or actually physically in the playoff tournament. I think that's good. I feel better about that. Then adding Devontae Adams, where I was vocal about it watching the film. I love Cooper Kupp. He's an all-time Ram for a gazillion different reasons. But McVay was purposely not using him a ton. And then when he was out there, I could see with my own two eyes, me and Mark talked about it and broadcasted this a ton, that something was up. Either he was playing hurt or he had just lost a step and Father Time caught up to him. So switching him out with Devontae, who was still killing it in my opinion. I watched his film last year. He's still killing it. That, adding in Poona Ford, another year for that entire front seven from the Rams defense, right? Another year for Verse. Another year for Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk, Byron Young, Omar Spates, the undrafted. I mean, the entire defense as a whole. I think that, another year for Chris Shula, the play caller, defensive coordinator. And I think the overall feel of like, hey, we're a young squad, but we showed that if we would have cleaned this up in that Philly game, we would probably be world champions based on how we play. And I think all of that, the motivation of that game, leads me to believe that this team could absolutely kick some ass and make a deep playoff run and win a Super Bowl, sincerely. So the scars of Jalen Carter lead me to believe that the players will carry those scars equally and be ready to go with the additions of new guys coming in. I'm excited, Kevin. I'm excited for real.
Yeah. Mark, you share Ian's excitement?
Yeah, and I think, the addition of this tight end, Terrence Ferguson, we're really excited about him. And what I think this offense is going to be a little bit more athletic on the outside with Devontae Adams and Terrence Ferguson. And I don't know if Ian mentioned it, but adding Poona Ford on the defensive line addresses our biggest issue we had last year, and that was giving up big time runs to opposing running backs. We have to fix that, and they've made a clear effort to address that with Poona Ford, a draft pick, Ty Hamilton, and basically restocked the linebacker position, not with a bunch of stars, but Nate Landman, and they drafted Pooh Paul. So, they're trying to address the run defense, which was our Achilles heel last year. Thanks a lot to Barkley on the Eagles, of course.
Yeah, you talk about the two guys on Philly who really did the Rams in that playoff game, Jalen Carter, Saquon Barkley. It's no shame struggling to try to stop those two monsters because the entire league struggled with them. But if the Rams can build themselves in a way that allows them to be able to get over that hurdle, they're as good as any team in the league. But what's interesting, when you look at Super Bowl odds, every book that you can look at is giving San Francisco better odds than the Rams. Is it possible that the Rams are underrated still in a way, or is maybe the San Francisco stuff just overblown?
Well, I would say that, number one, the 49ers have an extremely easy schedule. That could be part of it. And I think money just goes on the 49ers regardless. I think that's part of it. But I think I definitely think the Rams are probably a pretty good bet if they're longer odds than the 49ers at this point. But I have a lot of respect for the 49ers. I think there's some real concerns with their roster, though, but they do have the easier schedule. So I don't know. I think there are certain teams in the league that just automatically get more public love. And I don't know if that's skewing the odds a little bit this time of year. I'm no expert on that, but I definitely, I understand the 49ers are favored, have better odds, but I'd put money on the Rams at this point.
Ian, you agree? How do the Rams match up with the 49ers?
It's always a tough matchup. I mean, for many years it was, Shanahan owns McVay, right? And luckily the NFC Championship went our way because that would have been a disaster. And obviously no Super Bowl. It would have been double whammy on top of it. But it's a tough matchup every year. When we were technically the better team, we would still lose to them. When they had expectations, then we finally could beat them. And even this past season where teams were beat up, those games were still close. I mean, that was no different in years past when we were beat to hell and they were Super Bowl favorites and went on deep playoff runs. We still gave them hell. So it's those typical NFL division rivalry games where throw the records out, two teams that know each other perfectly. I mean, Shanahan and McVay go deep with their coaching roots from their days in Washington, obviously working with Shanahan Sr., Mike Shanahan, and McVay has a lot of ties to that. So, I mean, they know each other very well. Division game. And the styles are very interesting. Now the Rams have been shifting into more of a smash-mouth team. In years past, we were more, let's be honest, we were more finesse with the zone run scheme that we were doing and more play-action pass. Obviously, those are run-oriented things. So you can say, hey, Ian, how is that more finesse? But I think with the switching to the gap run scheme, the man-to-man blocking scheme, everyone out there, real quick, to sum that up, it does naturally lead to more physical play in the trenches, which is the John Lynch Shanahan style of play. And I think now that we've been leaning into that the last couple of seasons, we've been playing them much better and having a better shot of beating them other than like years past we were getting our ass whooped or our teams weren't getting the job done. So regardless of their reboot, their retooling, whatever they want to call it, their fan base wants to say, they're going to be a tough matchup. They still have tons of great young players, tons of great veteran players, potential future Hall of Famers on that roster. Still have an awesome coaching staff. Salah's returning there. I'm not taking them lightly. A lot of our fan base and the Niners fan base have nonstop crap talk year on, year out. And it's great. It's fun, right? But for anyone out there who's going to take them lightly, and I think that's foolish, and Rams fans shouldn't feel that way. So to the betting odds real quick, they have the easiest schedule, right? I think top 5, if my memory serves me correctly. Yep. They have a 4th place schedule because they finished last in the West, the NFC West. We finished first. We are playing other first place teams, and that difference of opponents does make a big difference, sincerely. So they'll have a shot to win the West if they beat the teams they're supposed to, and Purdy plays at his level. So that's something that, as a Rams fan looking into our own team, it's like, hey guys, the teams we got to beat, they got to get smashed in the ground, and we got to get a convincing W. And of course, division games win those. But to all the betting odds out there, I get it, easy schedule. But to Mark's point, the money's too good. Bet on the Rams. This team should be good if injuries don't blow this thing up like 2022. And gosh, if the Niners win this division, I'll be upset.
So I ask this question of my guests on this show every week, and I'm really interested in the answers. Listening to you guys talk about San Francisco, it feels like there's rivalry, maybe there's some dislike, but it also sounds like you respect them. It's kind of how Steelers fans feel about the Ravens. Steelers fans don't hate the Ravens because they respect them. Is there a team, whether it's you guys personally or for Rams fans in general, who the Rams just loathe? Is there a rival that you guys just cannot stand?
You want to go first, Ian? We both have the same answer.
Well, I'll give you a couple, actually. So number 1 is San Fran. We talked about all the respect, but I think the keyboard warriors will make it like, all right, we're rooting for your failure. Let's be honest. And there have been some content creators who have gone after us in years past that have been like, all right, dude, we got it. Look, this is all fun and games, sports, but I hope your team has a crappy year and you got to make, you got to have some content of some grueling times for your team being sucky. So there's been moments of that for sure. And that's been an old rivalry that's been going on since the LA Rams 1.0. Now we're in the 2.0 era. And I think that's number 1. But lately, though, I got to tell you, Kevin, and this is something I haven't partook in a ton, but our Rams fan base really dislikes the Lions fan base recently since the Goff Stafford trade. And it's been boiling and boiling and boiling every season since 2021. Now that'll probably fade away as Stafford eventually retires, and the Lions may or may not have long-term success with Goff and that current regime. But that's been a hot one. That's been boiling hot for the last handful of years. But Niners for the rest of time. But I'll give you that second one for a fun one. The Lions-Rams rivalry between the fans and even the players too. It's been palpable, and it's been funny to watch see grow.
Yeah, I think the Lions, a lot of it has to do with that hit on Tyler Higbee. A lot of Ram fans didn't appreciate that. And as far as the 49ers go, there are a lot of 49er fans in LA, and they like to, talk about SoFi. What do they call it? They call it the SoFi Stadium, Levi South, and they just talk about owning the Rams, and just kind of obnoxious at times, and it's just the way it is. And that's reason enough for me to want to squash them just a little extra.
It's interesting. You guys are the first NFC hosts that I've interviewed who did not answer Philadelphia Eagles to that question. The Eagles, and I think it's the Philly fan base that generates a broader loathing maybe than any other. So,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, I got a couple buddies, some of my best friends who I mentioned earlier, who were remember I told you guys earlier I have a bunch of friends, all different families. I got two of them that are Philly guys, born and raised in LA. They grew up with the McNabb era when they were doing well, so that's the lean towards them. But they've gone to games in Philadelphia, and they say, "Oh yeah, the hatred is earned." It's sincerely a wild spectacle for Philadelphia fans in Pennsylvania, and then obviously nationwide as well. So, for some two Birds fans, they tell me the hatred is earned. They get it.
Yeah, Philly, they're not going to be shy about letting you know how they feel. That's for sure. So, guys, before we get out of here, man, I want to give you a chance to talk up your Rams Up podcast. What do you have going on over there?
Well, it's been a little bit slow, but we try to find content, at least 3 or 4 times a week, and Ian and I do a show at least once a week. But once the season starts, man, we just pump out a lot of content. We occasionally have guests on, but it's usually just Ian and I, and Ian does some really good stuff. The orchestrated Rams, where he dissects plays, the 5 plays, and it's really entertaining and really informative, especially for someone like me, not so much an X and O guy, but I learn a lot from that. And we just it's just Rams football. We do a lot of different features throughout the season, but we generally during the season, we're pumping out podcasts and videos about 6 times a week, and pregame stuff, postgame stuff, just you name it, power rankings, you name it. We eventually get to it.
Yeah, Ian, you said beforehand you get into some scheme breakdown and things like that. That's exciting stuff.
Yeah, it is. So anyone out there who's a film junkie or loves the X's and O's, check out on our channel. So if you want to find it, YouTube, Rams Up Podcast. Anywhere you get your podcasts, you can type in the same thing, or any audio-only platforms. But like Mark said, there'll be plenty of post-game, plenty of pre-game. We'll have keys to victory episodes in that same week leading up to a game. And then after the game is played, after a day or two, then definitely we will have the orchestrated Rams segment, where it'll be me breaking down film, the top 5 most impactful plays of the game based on what happened in the game. So check us out. Film Junkie, you want commentary, pre-game, post-game, opponents during the week. I mean, we got it all for you guys. So if any Rams fan, any football fan out there wants to see what the hell's going on in the Rams universe, yeah, come check out our channel. Come listen to us on the podcast.
And we're going to try to take care of the Ravens for you, by the way, Kevin. We'll see if we can get a W there for you.
I won't be mad at you. I will not be mad at all. So, guys, thanks so much, man. I'm really optimistic about your team. I'm going to be following the Rams. They're one of the NFC teams I'm most interested in. And I hope it's an exciting season for you both.
Hey, thanks a lot for having us.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate
Yes, sir. All right, that was a fun conversation. So join me tomorrow. Tomorrow is our Friday conversation with Pez and I from Pez's Picks. Our hot route conversations about sports and life. We're going to be touching on a bunch of subjects. 4th of July. It's the biggest travel weekend of the year, of the summer anyway. We're going to talk about travel destinations. We're going to talk about man versus man sports, man versus nature sports. Which one is the bigger challenge? A lot of good conversations on Friday with Pez. So for Kevin Smith, this has been our State of the Franchise show. Have a great day, everybody.